Good evening. I'm Joe Carbonetta, and this is Arroyo Live. This program is produced by Pasadena Media in the Pasadena Media Center to help enrich our community through informative and meaningful conversation. You can share your questions or comments with us anytime at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org. Tonight, we have the opportunity to learn about one of the newest members of Pasadena Fire Department, Pasadena's new fire chief, responsible for overseeing the policies and actions of the city's 190 highly trained firefighting professionals across the city's 8 fire stations. We'll also have the opportunity to meet one of those professionals, a Pasadena fire captain, who also happens to be the second woman to earn that highly respected position within Pasadena's fire department. Join me for this week's edition of Arroyo Live. Joining me this evening are Pasadena Fire Chief Chad Augustine and Pasadena Fire Captain Jody Slicker. How are you both this evening?
Doing really
Doing
well,
great,
Joe.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to speak with us. I know you both have very, very busy schedules. But I would like to start out by asking each of you if you wouldn't mind telling our viewers at home a little bit more about yourselves. And Jody, if it's all right, I'd like to begin with you.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, thank you again for having me. My name is Jody Slicker. I'm 41 years of age. I've been with the Pasadena Fire Department coming up on 15 years now. Born, raised Southern California girl, grew up in Murrieta near Temecula area. Went to Cal State Fullerton, got my degree. I was a collegiate volleyball, softball player. And it was my sophomore year of college, actually, is when I decided to pursue the fire service. So now I've been with Pasadena for the last 15 years and living the dream.
Okay. That sounds wonderful. Chad, how about you?
Joe, again, thank you for allowing me to be on today. I am your newest city employee. I'm a seasoned veteran with 7.5 weeks on the job as your new fire chief, and am absolutely honored to be here. I spent my previous 23 years in Sacramento, living in Sacramento, and also as an employee of the Sacramento Fire Department, and grew up in Northern California. Met my wife on the Central Coast in Pismo Beach and promised her at some point in our lives we would relocate back to Southern California, and just thrilled to be here. Outside of the fire service, I've been married for 25 years and really enjoy anything fitness related, and also aviation as a private pilot.
That sounds like a very, very busy schedule, even outside of work. But I did want to clarify because I know you were joking at the top there when you said new 7.5 weeks, but you are certainly no stranger to the fire service. You have quite a storied career as a firefighter prior to coming to Pasadena. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I feel really honored after a nationwide search to be selected here as to lead the Pasadena Fire Department. But lots of years in the fire service, across all ranks, and working in a big city in the state capital of California, I believe really gave me the good knowledge, skills, and abilities in order to come into Pasadena to be successful.
All right. Well, we are certainly pleased to have you here in the city and again here on the show this evening. Again, thank you both for coming. I would also like to ask each of you about the challenges that you face as fire department officials, as well as some of the challenges that perhaps you look forward to. I guess, again, if you don't mind, Jody, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, Joe. Challenges. I mean, basically the day-to-day challenges that we face, going on our emergency calls. And, as a supervisor now, I've been in my position for the last 4.5 years. I was a firefighter paramedic prior to that with Pasadena. So my role, once it switched, became very challenging. Now I'm a supervisor and I pretty much have to have the whole 360 view when we respond to our emergency calls every day. And I'm not just the paramedic that is attending to the patients or into our customers and the citizens of Pasadena. As a supervisor, I'm now responsible for my whole company on scene and pretty much the scene in general. So a lot of responsibility lies on me and the decisions that I make every day when we respond to whether it be a fire, a structure fire, a medical call, or a traffic accident. If I'm there first, I'm the one responsible to delegate and to assume the command position of whether we need more resources based upon what we have. So that's the challenges of my everyday job in my position currently as a fire captain. So when I was promoted, I love being a paramedic and I love attending to the patients and getting into the medicine side of our business. However, once I had to, was promoted, I had to take a step back and allow now my paramedics on my crew to now go ahead and assist and engage in patient care. So that's been kind of challenging because I do love that side of the job, but sometimes I'll be able to get in there if it deems so. But that's a challenge. I had to switch my role pretty quickly and figure out my position on calls, so we can provide the best service for the citizens of Pasadena.
Speaking of the challenges of the job, prior to our taping this show this afternoon, we were just having a bit of a discussion, and you happened to mention that you are actually just coming off of a shift prior to joining us here right now. So obviously you're very busy all the time.
Yes, sir. Yes, we work 48-hour schedules. So, or sometimes 72, 96. In brush season, sometimes we work, 14 to 21 days. So yes, it's a very demanding job with, we're constantly, at work. There's really not a whole lot of downtime. But that's what I signed up to do. And, you just manage your time when you're at home to take care of yourself so you can get back to work and provide the service that we provide.
Well, again, it sounds certainly very busy and definitely very challenging. Obviously, it is something that you probably have to be born knowing you wanted to do. And it's wonderful. We again thank you for all that you do.
Thank you very
And
much.
Chief Augustine, again, the same question to you as well. Challenges that you face on a daily basis, and challenges that you hope to or look forward to facing on the job.
Sure. Um, I'll start by saying, as the fire chief, I work for Captain Slicker and all of our members, and it's my job to make sure that they have the tools that they need to go out and serve the community. And so as we're coming out of a pandemic, right, this last year was just unprecedented challenges in order to get creative so that our workforce could stay safe in order to provide uninterrupted service. That was probably the biggest challenge. And then you add in the worst fire season in California history. All of those just make providing service a challenge. Walking into a new organization, some of the challenges that I see is that we have some immediate recruitment and hiring needs so that we can keep the workforce fully staffed. That's been a challenge, not just for Pasadena Fire Department, but for fire departments up and down the state with retirements and people leaving for other professions. That's going to be a continued challenge. And then as we come out of a pandemic with a lot of economic uncertainty, there's only so much money in a budget, and it's my job to make sure that we're good stewards of the resources that were provided so that we can provide the best service to the community.
Well, you both mentioned at the outset that you didn't originate in the Pasadena area, at least not as firefighters. What brought you to Pasadena? And again, this question is for each of you. I don't know who wants to field that one first. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pick you, Chad, if you don't mind, to answer that one.
No problem. Growing up in the Sacramento area, the fire department there is about triple the size of Pasadena, and it was a great department to get lots of experience. But as I was looking for an opportunity to lead an organization, I wanted to find a city that was smaller but still provided all the services of a large city department. And when I found Pasadena, I was so impressed with just the level of service and it's really a full service department, from providing ambulances and EMS and paramedics and wildland services and special operations with an urban search and rescue program. You name it, this department provides it to the community, and it's so impressive. And then as I got to know the employees and their dedication to the job, it just made it so exciting for me, for a location where I wanted to relocate my wife and I, so that we could be part of this great department.
And for you, Captain Slicker?
Well, Joe, I was brought towards Pasadena. I actually started with Long Beach Fire Department as an ambulance operator, and I was there for about a year when I was testing for fire departments. And my father's best friend actually worked for Pasadena, and to me, it was a smaller department that, in the fire service, you want a tight knit, community within the fire department. I grew up in the fire service. My father retired from a smaller fire department. So I knew when I was testing, I wanted a smaller fire department versus like a LA County or a Long Beach, just because, the camaraderie between, the individuals in my department, and then the opportunity that actually Pasadena Fire Department offers, because of we are a small city, but we do operate as if we are a bigger city with the resources that we do supply to the citizens. And within our department, we have urban search and rescue. We have a paramedic service, our ambulance service. And so we have a variety of services that, as a firefighter, that you can go ahead and try to specialize in something that you're good at, and be a part of, a smaller network within the fire department that offers, a specialty to the community. So that's what drew me to Pasadena. And actually my grandfather grew up in Pasadena. So there's always been a love for Pasadena with me. Growing up, I never really knew of Pasadena until, talking to my grandfather, and I was like, oh, outstanding. This is a great opportunity. This is where I belong. So, and that's where I've always, wanted to be in a smaller department. And, I've had opportunities to go to bigger departments, but, Pasadena is where I want to be.
Well, I guess that would answer my next question is, if you feel that you made a wise choice, and it sounds as though you did, you enjoy the smaller department, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
My next question is probably geared more toward you, Chief Augustine, in that coming out of Northern California, where they certainly get a lot more rain, it's probably a slightly different style to come down here to the Southern California area. And now that we're heading into our big fire season, as it were, if there is such a thing, that seems to become larger and larger every year in Southern California. The fire season seems to become longer. Uh, what kind of challenges do you anticipate, and how do you deal with them?
That's a great question. I think I would start by saying that California has the best mass mutual aid system in the world. There's not a single department, even the largest departments like LA County, that can handle every emergency and every fire on their own. And what you'll see is, right, you'll see fire engines driving up and down the state all summer long, sharing resources. And while Sacramento doesn't necessarily have the wildland interface that we do here in Pasadena, we do have, just outside of our areas, communities that were wiped out. Paradise is not very far from Sacramento, and so I have a good understanding of the risk as I walk into Pasadena and look around at how dry this year has been. I believe it's the third driest year on record, and if we're comparing fires to date compared to last year, we're already exceeding that. So it makes me nervous. We have a great department of people that are willing and able to not just serve our community, but be able to be available to travel up and down the state to help other departments in need. And so that's a big concern of mine. We're doing lots of prevention activities in our high hazard areas right now, making sure we're clearing debris, making sure that we're doing public education on evacuation routes and having go bags, and really just making sure that we're spreading the word to be prepared when that emergency does happen.
I think you just mentioned the third driest season so far on record. I really hate to use the phrase baptism by fire, but it almost seems very appropriate for the upcoming year. What are things that residents can do to try and mitigate the risks, especially when the seasons are becoming, at least they appear to be becoming drier all the time?
Sure. Joe, probably the biggest thing that we can do is in our high hazard areas is having defensible space. And we like to say 100-foot defensible space. We also want to make sure in some of our high hazard areas, the roadways are narrow and access and egress can be challenging. So ensuring that we have at least 10 feet off the roadway so that our fire engines can get by, that you don't have large trees overhanging your house with dry or dying, limbs. And then as we go into that, it's having a plan, right? Like, so that as a family, you're prepared, kind of the things that we talked about just a couple minutes ago, having a plan, having an evacuation route, having a go bag for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours with clothes and medications and money, so that when that emergency happens, you're able to safely evacuate your house. We can replace property all day long, but we can't replace lives. And that's probably the most important thing. We want people to be prepared, to do lots of planning, to keep their area and their residents safe. But when there is an emergency and it's time to leave, we want to make sure that they leave safely.
All right. Well, to lighten things up just a little bit, I would like to ask each of you, and Jody, I think I'll begin with you. What are some of your favorite things about the fire service, about being a firefighter?
Uh, my favorite things, that's easy. That's, taking care of people, compassion is one of my favorite, I think, characteristics. And that's, showing up to somebody's house when they're having the worst day and I'm able to show up and try to make it a better day for them, you know, whether it be, picking them up off the floor and putting them back to bed, or, taking them to the hospital, or, responding to, when their house is on fire. Besides that, I mean, that's why I joined the fire service. But and just being out in the community and teaching people, fire prevention, and getting to know the citizens, and doing it with a crew that I love to come to work and work with. So, that's just the icing on the cake for me. But just being in the fire service and having a second family, I think, is what I truly love.
Same question to you, Chief Augustine.
I think I'll agree with Captain Slicker. The ability to help somebody on their worst day, and really be able to make an impact, and whether that's on somebody whose house that's on fire, or somebody who's suffering a medical emergency. And now, as your fire chief, I don't necessarily do that as often, but I get the ability to serve my employees so that they have the tools they need to be able to help somebody on their worst day. The next thing I would say is the camaraderie. The men and women that work in the fire service really love their job, and the ability to form friendships is just wonderful. And then just that ability to serve the community, where you feel like you're giving back to the community that's given so much to you, is that's such a wonderful feeling.
Well, we've certainly all had the opportunity to see the fire service depicted on television, and in some cases in the movies. And I'm wondering how accurate those depictions are. Captain Slicker, could you talk us through a day in the life of the fire service?
Sure, Joe. Well, as a supervisor, I actually get to work a few minutes before my crew does, because we have what's called an Outlook. So it's a calendar of what our day is going to look like, whether it be meetings, public education, multi-company training, and so forth. So I come to work a little early. It's about 6:15 in the morning is when I get there. And I'll just review the day, and then I'll add to it. And, we have our morning lineup at 0700. So we sit down with the crew and I go over what the day is going to look like. I ask them if they have any needs. And, we start off by, of course, checking out our gear right after lineup, making sure everything's ready to go. Cause, I've walked into work and all of a sudden I'm going on a call and I haven't really had any time to, get my uniform on. So, I mean, things can happen, within an instant when you arrive to work. So just being ready at all times is the most important thing to do when we get to work. And then, of course, we have an hour of physical fitness, and I think that's a really huge part of our job. So my crew and I will work out as much time as for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the call volume. And then from there, we're usually right now it's like Chief said, it's brush season, so we're out with the community doing brush inspections and speaking with the homeowners of what they can do as far as brush clearance. And then we'll head to the market, and right now we like to cook our lunch and dinners together. So we have a designated cook on my shift, so that's awesome. So we try to eat our meals as a crew at the station, and then the afternoon we'll either go pull some hose, throw some ladders, or do some more public education depending on the schedule, and all while running our calls too, and serving the citizens.
I guess one of the most important takeaways from all of that is that there really isn't any time where you're just sitting around in the fire station waiting for a call. There's always something to be doing.
There's
Is
always
that
something, yes, and with especially at my station, I'm one of our EMS captains, so a lot of our medications are distributed through my station. So we're a very high busy station. So I have a lot of ambulances coming to the station, refilling their medications, and so we're constantly busy, which is awesome. I didn't sign up to sit around and do nothing, so I enjoy being busy, whether it be running medical calls, emergency calls, or working on my programs that I'm assigned to within the department.
is it possible to actually get any sleep in a fire station, during that portion of the evening when one is supposed to be sleeping?
We do have we do get our time to sleep, and just like everybody else, we try to shoot for that time to go to sleep. But like this morning I went to bed at 11, and we got a call at 3:30 this morning. So
That's
you
gotta be
never
very,
know.
very
You
difficult
never
to
know.
get jarred out of bed at 3:30 in the morning and have all of your wits about you.
Yeah, well, yep, it takes time to you know to process and become an individual that can think within 10 seconds of waking up. But I think I've managed.
Well, again, I have nothing but the greatest respect for you and your colleagues for being able to do that. I certainly know what it's like when I get jarred out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it definitely takes me more than a few seconds to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes I put my socks on the wrong feet, but that's about it. So
Uh, okay. Well, Chief Augustine, what are some of the day-to-day tasks of being the fire chief for the city of Pasadena?
Yeah, if I can, Joe, I'm going to take a step back as to add to Captain Slicker. One of the fun things about the fire service, you're not just firefighters and EMTs or paramedics, but you're janitors and carpenters and mechanics and chefs and counselors and teachers and all of the above. And that's really what makes the job fun. It's the goal is whatever the emergency is, we're going to handle that. And then we get pretty handy at low-level maintenance and around with our apparatus and making sure that we're keeping our fire stations, which we're entrusted through the public funds, we keep them in tip-top shape. And if you can't cook a good meal, you're not going to last in the fire station. So you find that we have some really good cooks. These days, my job, as I'm getting to know the community and working with other departments, advocating for the fire department and ensuring that we have the resources that we need so that my team, like Captain Slicker, can go out and provide the excellent service that she does on a daily basis.
Well, Chief Augustine, you mentioned that the primary responsibility as a member of the fire service is whatever the emergency is, that you will be prepared and handle that. And I bring that up only because many people may not realize that there are several web pages within the city that are devoted to the city's fire departments. And I say that because there's one question I noticed that repeats itself in several different locations across those websites, and that's about firefighters rescuing cats. Uh, I'm not sure why that figures so prominently, but the website points out that you certainly do try to be or ready to respond to just about any emergency, although saving cats from trees is not generally one of them. But I guess that's a little anecdotal. I'm wondering if you've ever been called to deal with that. If either of you have ever been called to deal with that situation.
Both, I'm sure, just
Oh,
like Captain
yes,
Slicker will say yes, we both have numerous times. And
numerous times.
Joe,
And
I think
Joe,
our thought is whatever the emergency is, or whatever the need is, we're going to do our best to help that person who called 911 who's in their moment of need. We're going to do our best to help problem solve to get a resolution.
Captain Slicker, I know you were going to say something as well, and
yeah, no, that's, exactly what Chief just said. We do our best to mitigate the situation and have a good outcome, whether it, be trying to get a cat. I'm actually a cat lover. I have two myself. So I just know that when cats go up a tree, they're more than likely going to come down the tree. I've never seen a skeleton cat in the tree. So just be sure that, animals, they find their way down. But yes, of course, if someone calls because, their cat's in the tree, we absolutely do our best, to assist. And, we've never left a cat up in a tree stuck. So,
well, all right. We certainly do appreciate that. It's funny that you cannot have a conversation, it seems, in this day and age without COVID somehow getting involved in that conversation. And to that end, I have to ask, what is the situation with vaccines within the fire department? How is that progressing?
Joe, I think I can tackle that. I would say the number is nearly 75% of our personnel have been vaccinated. It's been offered to all of our members, and I think as we continue along and start to open up, that remaining percentage of the employees, if they desire to get vaccinated, will absolutely be able to be vaccinated. Where I came from in Sacramento, we actually partnered with public health, and we had mobile units and ambulances that went out and served the community providing vaccines. And Pasadena Fire Department, we work hand in hand. We're really fortunate to have public health officer here in Pasadena, and do our best to partner with Dr. Go and her team on whatever the need is. But all of our employees have been offered the vaccine to date.
Well, you mentioned that all of the employees have been offered, but the actual vaccination rate is, I believe you said 70%. The remaining 30%, has there been a lot of resistance to being vaccinated, or is it just that they don't have the time?
Well, since vaccines are not mandatory at this point, we offer it on a voluntary basis. And I think as we move forward and more and more people realize that the vaccines are safe, that that remaining 25 to 30% may change their mind. But at this time, we're just continuing to offer it on a voluntary basis for our employees.
I'd like to kind of change the subject a bit and discuss disaster preparedness. And I was wondering if there are tips that you might be able to give our viewers at home about being prepared for disasters. Certainly, there are natural disasters that are a very big fact of life in Southern California, such as earthquakes, but also there's the upcoming brush fire season.
Joe, you want me to take that one, or is that to start with Captain Slicker?
If either one of you feels comfortable with answering that, I didn't want to point a finger at one particular person to take this one. I would certainly love to hear answers from both of you, because I'm sure that there are different points that each of you would bring up.
Sure. I'll kick it off. We're really fortunate in Pasadena. We have Map Your Neighborhood program. And there's other communities that have different but similar programs. And it really is kind of a step-by-step of steps to take in preparation or in the event of an emergency. But really what we're gonna continue to promote and partner with our community is education and pre-planning, right? Having that plan in place when the emergency hits, and whether it's a no-notice event like an earthquake or something that we have a little bit of advanced notice and planning on, we still want to provide the safest community possible and provide lots of education. But it's just some simple things that we would, in addition to having like a plan and a go bag, if you're preparing for a catastrophic event, like turning off your gas meter and your water valve and putting out any small fires if you're able to, knowing what to do, like with just some simple medical care and treatment for, bleeding and bleeding control. So in that like first few minutes where there may not be quick access to care, you're able to save a life, whether it's your own or someone else's.
Captain Slicker, I was wondering if you might have some points that you'd like to add to that also.
Yeah, just like Chief mentions, just having a plan within your home for any catastrophic event that may occur. Having a supply of water. If you have small children, make sure you have enough food, for X amount of days, and blankets, and have like valuables set aside that that you're not going to be able to live without. So. And then, of course, joining the PERT team within the community, the Pasadena Emergency Response Team. We've had a great response with citizens joining, that team, and learning basic life support, or first aid, how to, do basic wound care, and, or CPR, and, or how to, help your neighbor, if they're, elderly, and, they can't necessarily, leave their home themselves because they need assistance. So looking into the PERT team within the community is another way that you can learn about, being prepared, for in case, a natural disaster may occur. And, we all know Southern California, we're pretty up for anything that goes these days, whether it be earthquakes, brush fires, wind events, rain. So just being prepared for anything.
Well, Chief
Hey, Joe, I'd
Augustine,
like to, if I may, make one plug for our PLEAS, which is your Pasadena local emergency alert system. And you can sign up for that. And I'd encourage our community to sign up for that. It allows you to receive both phone and text messages in the event of an emergency.
all right. And where do they go to sign up for that?
They can go to our website and it'll give instructions on that. You can also go to Pasadena Local Alert at cityofpasadena.net, and that will give you information. But if you go to our website, it'll walk you through.
Well, that sounds like very important information, and we appreciate you sharing that. Chief Augustine, you mentioned earlier that being in the fire service is one part teaching as well. And as we were discussing disaster preparedness, I was wondering if the fire department offers any type of teaching or training courses on things like disaster preparedness or other emergencies.
We do. And as Captain Slicker said, probably our most successful program is our PERT or some version of a CERT program, a community emergency response team. And we're a small but mighty workforce. And they really are just members within the community that are available to assist in a time of crisis or emergency. We also do a lot of public education. And as Captain Slicker said, right now with our prevention side, just promoting fire safety. And as we come out of the pandemic, I think you'll see a lot more community education programs being rolled back out.
And for viewers at home that might be interested in learning more about these programs, where would they go for that information?
They can go to our website. All of that will provide links to different and various programs that our community can get involved with.
All right. Well, earlier in the show, we noted that the brush fire season, which grows longer every year, is fast approaching, and that usually coincides with the spring and summer months. And of course, with the warmer weather brings out the hikers and all of the people who like to remain physically active. Uh, what are some of the dangers and emergencies that the fire service is tasked with respect to all of these outdoor activities? Either one
Joe,
of you.
yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer. Well, because through the pandemic, I think a lot of people were cooped up inside, and I think now, with the good weather, people are going to start wanting to hike. And I can say from experience, one of our popular emergency medical calls are, hikers going up to Eaton Canyon and not really being prepared. They think it's just like a brisk walk, through the canyon. But, making sure you have proper footwear when you go on a hike and you're properly hydrated, and you have, some type of service where you can, call 911 if something does happen. But we tend to go on a lot of calls through the Eaton Canyon because hikers will get back about 1.5 miles and they'll twist an ankle or they're dehydrated. So that's one of the challenges that we do face coming the spring and summer months. So just, being prepared when you go on a hike, and, you're going to be, and with snakes and stuff too, just learning what you're about to go into, and not just think it's just a walk, down the boardwalk, along the beach. I mean, you got to be prepared and, know that it can be a little dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, and Captain Slicker, you mentioned snake bites, and
Mhm.
certainly the first response to those has changed over the years. Would you mind telling our viewers at home a little bit more about what they should do in the event of a snake bite?
Yes, of course. I mentioned, when you're on a hike, with the warmer temperatures coming our way, you're going to see a lot more snakes that are going to be out there on the hikes. They're looking for water. So just if in case you do come across a snake and you happen to get bitten, just know that, venom will run through your body. And if let's say you were bit on the hand, just keeping that wound wherever you were bit, keeping it below the heart. And if you have any sterile dry dressing, bandage it up, and that will delay the process of the venom circulating through your bloodstream. And then, of course, call 911, and we'll get you to the appropriate facility as needed. But if you're there by yourself, that's probably the best option that you have, is just cover it with the dry dressing, and keep that wound below your heart. And if you have any jewelry on, remove it right away, so in case it does start to swell, that you don't have your ring on, or a bracelet, or so forth. So
I would also like to take a moment to discuss the severity of situations of dehydration. Too often, I think people tend to think of dehydration as just not having enough to drink, and that it's not a serious condition, but it can, in fact, be quite serious. I was hoping you might take a moment to discuss that as well.
yeah, of course. And people think, hydrating themselves is, the day of. So if you're about to go on a hike and you decide, I'm going to drink my 8 ounces of water right before, it's actually, you should be drinking 24 hours before you do something kind of strenuous. Hydrating is always 24 hours before activity. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you, unfortunately, being dehydrated can come with some serious complications, and that's a lot of kidney failure is probably the most severe. So you kind of want to hydrate before you do anything like as far as activity, 24 hours before, to prevent dehydration that could lead to more serious events such as organ failure. So
I recall reading a statistic at some point that suggests that by the time you are experiencing thirst, you've actually already reached a point of dehydration. Is that in fact correct?
that's somewhat true, yes, and that's why I mentioned hydrating 24 hours before. Hydrating the day of is not hydrating. You're already actually dehydrated. Yes. So if you're extremely thirsty, then yeah, your body's telling you something, and you should be very vigilant of what your body is telling you.
Right. Well, similar to our discussion earlier about some tips for disaster preparedness, are there recommendations that you would make for a person who's looking to go hiking for the day, things they should have with them in a backpack?
Yeah, just like I said, mentioned before, you start with proper footwear, enough water to get you in to a hike, and outside, back to, dry land. If you're hiking 2 miles in, you're going to hike back 2 miles. So that's a total of 4 miles. So making sure you have enough water, maybe a first aid kit, keep with you, like I mentioned, in case you do get bitten by, a snake, or, whatever you encounter, you have, bandages, tape, maybe, some type of lighting, a flashlight, and, a knife, something that you can use, if you need to cut, branches, you fall and you need to cut your way out of something. I mean, I'm thinking extreme, but this is kind of the things that I have in my backpack. And then sunscreen too, sometimes people forget about sunscreen. So they come back with, burns, and, they don't realize that, the higher you get in elevation, the more intense the sun gets. So, and, and maybe a partner too. I don't suggest hiking alone. So if you can go with, somebody else or a group, I highly suggest that as well.
All right. Well, again, kind of switching gears here a bit, but Chief Augustine, you mentioned earlier the CERT program. Pasadena, do they have a CERT program?
Joe, we sure do. We are a small but mighty workforce of around 11 members, and but those 11 members do amazing work. And our CERT program, right, just to get involved, it's usually anywhere from a 20 to 24-hour initial training for our community members, and we're teaching them a little bit about a lot of different subjects. And then they're out in the community, and it may be assisting with vaccines or assisting with emergency evacuations. They really are an extension of our workforce. And I'm confident that as we come back out of this pandemic, we'll be working hard to grow our CERT or a PERT team, so that people who are interested will have that opportunity, and we'll put them to work.
So CERT team members do get the opportunity to work with the fire department from time to time. Is that obviously not in a firefighting capacity, but they do interact with the fire department from time to time?
That is correct. And where I came from in Sacramento, we had a robust CERT team, and we used them. They helped coordinate with vaccines every single day. As we were doing large scale emergency planning, they were assisting with whether it's evacuations or traffic control. There's so many uses for a CERT team, and a lot of them come with a really high level of professional experience in other areas that creates such a value to the community. And that's really what we want to do, is we just want to harness that workforce who want to give back to the community as an extension of the fire department.
Well, you mentioned that Pasadena's CERT team is relatively small. Is that by design or simply because they need more volunteers?
I think it's a little of both, right? When you're looking at having a workforce that you can put to work and keep highly trained, there's that sweet spot where sometimes getting too many members is tough to keep them engaged and keep them highly trained. But what I'm seeing, 11 is probably not that sweet spot. We could definitely use more members, and we will be more than happy to provide that training and that community involvement.
And I have a feeling I know exactly what you're going to say, but I will ask the question anyway. For viewers at home that want to learn more about the CERT program and how to become involved, where would they go?
They can go to our website. I'm impressed with our website. There's a lot of information, and pretty much any of these questions that we're talking about or topics, we can find additional information on our website.
There certainly is an awful lot of information. I can definitely attest to that. As I mentioned, I have looked at both of the websites, especially in preparation for today's program. But one of the things that I could not find, which kind of surprised me, was statistical information about the fire department. And specifically, what I would really like to know is approximately how many calls for service does the fire department in Pasadena have on average each year?
Sure. So we Pasadena responds to just around 20,000 calls for service each year. And relatively speaking, across 8 fire stations, we are a busy fire department. This last year during the pandemic, our call volume was down a little bit. But if you look historically at our trends, we're right around the 20,000 calls for service every year. And that's across all types of calls, from fire calls to medical aids to public assistance to technical rescues, you name it. That's all inclusive.
Okay, so the statistical information doesn't really give you an idea how many of those are serious emergencies as opposed to things like getting a cat out of a tree.
We do provide a breakdown of the types of calls by general categories like medical calls and fire calls. What's important to what I always like to say is, right, like one call could take 12 hours, right? You could, if we were just talking about a rescue in the canyon on a stranded hiker, we could have members there for hours, or a grass fire, a wildland fire, or a structure fire, versus a medical call that we may be done in 30 minutes. And so that's part of the challenge and the fun of the job. You're never sure what the next call is going to be, and that's why we train in so many different areas so that we can be prepared to handle that emergency.
Well, and a question for each of you, because certainly you both have experience with different cities and different fire departments. Would you say that Pasadena is a busier city from the fire service standpoint, or not as busy as some of the places you've served in the past? And again, that's for each of you to answer.
I think based upon square mileage of what Pasadena is, I think we're pretty equal. I mean, I came from Long Beach City, which is twice the size as Pasadena. So I think we're very comparable as far as call volume in that sense.
Joe, I agree with Captain Slicker. For a smaller to medium-sized city, Pasadena, being 23 square miles ish, has a lot of risk and a lot of calls. Where I came from in Sacramento, we were a bigger department, and we're also extremely busy. We ran around 95,000 calls, but we had substantially more resources and employees. So relatively speaking, I'm very proud to say that our members in Pasadena, they work hard for this community.
All right. Well, going back to the websites for just a moment, you mentioned that they were very proud of the websites, and one of the interesting bits of information that is prominently displayed on many of the websites is that the city of Pasadena is ISO certified #1. And I guess I will direct this question to you, Chief Augustine. If you could tell our viewers at home what exactly that means, what an ISO rating is. I know that not all cities in the state subscribe to the ISO rating system, but it is a very useful tool.
It is. And if you go back historically, right, your ISO rating really had to do with your insurance rates. And the better your rating, the lower your insurance rates would be. And while that may be less likely in today's environment, we have it really is inclusive of the service delivery. And it also takes into account the amount of personnel that are responding, your water supply. But what it tells me is the level of service that the Pasadena Fire Department provides, as well as the city, is at the very top notch that you can provide. And so our residents should be really proud of that, because we sure are proud of it.
Well, and speaking of being proud of the fire department, I was wondering, and again, this is a question I'd like to direct to each of you. Uh, Perhaps I will begin with you, Captain Slicker. What are some of the things the Pasadena Fire Department does really well?
Customer service, I think we're top notch. So I think just if you ask anybody that has used our service, unfortunately on their part, but I think they can come back and say that, no matter what you call 911 for, we are always there with great customer service, and we try to treat everybody like as if it's our own family member.
And Joe, I'm going to add to that and brag about our employees. I had heard this term, Cadillac level service, right, before coming to Pasadena. And really what it meant was that the Pasadena Fire Department provides the top notch level of service. And in my 7 weeks, I've been so impressed. The devotion to providing like the top notch service to our community and the residents of Pasadena it's infectious, and it's just fun to watch. It makes me proud.
Okay. I guess the next question would have to be, what are some of the challenges ahead, things that you hope to accomplish? And I think again, this question is going to be directed to each of you, as you're both supervisors, obviously tasked with different roles. But Chief Augustine, if we could begin with you, what are some of the uh, next hurdles that you'd like to overcome with the Pasadena Fire Department? Where do you see it going in the years to come?
Sure. I'm going to start with kind of some short-term goals. And like many departments, we're struggling with keeping a ready workforce. We have lots of vacancies. And so coming in and our employees are, I want them to be able to have a balance, a work rest balance. And so ensuring that we do annual recruitment and hiring is very important to me. I also want to make sure that we fill vacancies and do timely promotions. And those are some of the things that we've been working on in my first 2 months. And then ensuring that we're doing really good employee development so that we are growing future fire engineers, fire captains, and chief officers within our ranks. And then looking at ways, utilizing technology to provide even better service. Right now, technology is in fast forward, and what we did 30 years ago in the fire service is very antiquated, and we want to look for new and emerging technologies in order to better serve the community. And then finally, I'd say, looking for ways to provide an even better level of service in times of economic uncertainty. And that's my job of finding efficiencies in ways that we never interrupt service delivery, but that we're good stewards of the community's resources.
Okay, and same question to you, Captain Slicker.
Yeah, Joe, as a supervisor, I'm supervising, from 4 people to 6 members a day. So career development for me, for my crew, developing them in their career path, whether it be they want to, promote to an engineer or a position of mine as a supervisor. So going out there and training and giving them the resources and the time to study and to prepare them for upcoming promotional exams. And of course, with new members that we have, a group of probationaries that have been on the job for 6 months. It's going out there and training them pretty much the Pasadena way and showing them how we do things and making sure that they're ready just as well as we are ready to respond, and that, we're giving our best to the community and that we're keeping up with the latest, like Chief said, technology, and just being prepared year round for what's coming.
Well, and to that end, Chief Augustine, you mentioned just a moment ago in your response that some of the techniques that were formerly used seem very antiquated. How has firefighting technique changed over the years?
Sure. I would say we're smarter firefighters now. We have drone technology. We have computerized mapping that tells us that we can overlap residences and businesses that may be on fire, and it gives us a very good idea of where a fire is and what hazards are within inside of a building. The way structures are built today is completely different from how they were built 30 years ago. And so we have to keep up with those changes. Those today's buildings are meant to withstand a load, but not under fire conditions. And so it's imperative for us to make sure that we have very educated employees so that that we don't have a loss of life while trying to extinguish a fire. And as we continue to look at technology, there's so much out there right now that's helping us provide for a safer environment for our firefighters, from computerized programs that really tell us where our members are inside of a building, how much air they have left that they're breathing in their air packs, all of those from a chief officer that will provide us tools to help ensure that we have a safer fire ground, because I want each of my members to go home safely to their families.
Well, and I have to ask this, as you mentioned that the technology is always improving. Recently, and when I say recently, it's probably been about 6 months or so. I think the Los Angeles County Fire Department debuted a firefighting robot. It was basically a vehicle that could go into burning buildings. Is that something that the Pasadena Fire Department hopes to acquire someday, or is that kind of unrealistic technology?
You'd be surprised that It may not be a firefighting robot, but we use on the special operations side of the house robots to help with identifying hazardous materials or identifying something, working with law enforcement that may be an improvised explosive device. We also use drone technology to be able to have an aerial overview of what the hazard is, whether it's a wildland fire and where it's burning, or a house that's on fire, or some other target hazard. All of those emerging technologies are exciting because it really just gives us more intel to be able to be smarter firefighters.
Well, for our viewers at home, I'm sure they have found our conversation to be very, very interesting. And with that in mind, I would like to ask if there are ways that the public can be more directly involved with the fire departments in Pasadena.
Chief Slicker, you want to start that one?
Yeah, sure, Joe. Just like what we mentioned before, getting involved with our PERT team, our CERT team, coming by the fire station. We're open 24/7. So we love when people come by just to ask questions or to show their kids the fire engine. And that's just a way of us, showing and teaching, public education and just like basic life-saving measures that they can do at home. And then, visiting our website, we keep harping on our website, but it truly is, with technology, it's so easy. It's at the palm of your hand, and, and just viewing the links and calling the fire department. We have, outstanding, administration that, can direct, whatever question you have, they'll give you the right resource. So, just be old fashioned and just come by and say hello, and, just come through a fire station and see what we're all about and see what service is provided, to you.
Captain Slicker, I would like to go into a little bit more detail on that for just a moment, because I think so many of us, myself included, we see fire stations all the time and recognize them as very important places of business, but we don't think of them as being open to the public the way, say, a library is. So you were just extending an invitation. Is that really the case where people can come in and just poke their head in and say, "Hi, I'm here to see the fire station"?
During COVID, no, unfortunately, but yes, we've had, we host birthday parties. I remember growing up as a kid and going to my dad's fire station for birthday parties. And it's just a way of, getting the community in, and, basically that's, it's your engine as much as, well, it's my fire engine. So I think being in the fire station and putting on our gear and holding the tools that we operate on a day-to-day basis, I think it gives more of appreciation for what we do. And, I think, just, meeting your next door neighbor, we have a fire station that is in the middle of a residential community. And I think, the neighbors love having a fire station there. They know that they're there within a blink of an eye. So it's just like, we're there for 48 hours at a time. So it's like, we're neighbors. So yeah, I say more than welcome to come by at any time.
All right. And one last time, Chief Augustine, if you wouldn't mind, would you please let everyone at home know what the website address is?
Sure, you can go to cityofpasadena.org, and then you can drop down under departments for fire. That's probably the easiest way. And to add to Captain Slicker, like, our goal is to be your community fire department. We are part of your community. We work for each of you, and we are just like honored to work within the community. So post-COVID, we look forward to be engaging and having those birthday parties, having the community drop in, and again, just being a resource to our neighbors.
Well, and with that, I'm afraid we have run out of time. Pasadena Fire Chief Chad Augustine and Pasadena Fire Captain Jody Slicker, thank you both for joining us this evening. The conversation has definitely been very informative and very interesting. And we certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us this evening. To our viewers at home, if there are topics you would like to see addressed in our program, you can email them to us at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org, and we may include them in a future broadcast. Until next time, this has been Arroyo Live. I'm Joe Carbonetta. Thank you for watching, and good night.